It's the middle of October, and I'm going to give you an update on our larva slash fly room and pupa room. This room here is our pupa room, but as you might be able to see real good, is there's a whole lot of flies that are hatching. We have a lot of different variations of bins for the larvae to crawl out of. The half pipe works, but not really very well. And then we've got the wooden bin with the ramp, which seems to be doing pretty good for a makeshift. This is the catch for these 3 bins. And so today I'll be putting all the larvae in there. So now we got 3 bins over here with pipes, and they've got this much larva. This is the daily thing. We collect the pupa. This is the new worm bin. We still don't have a name for. I was hoping to have it by last month, but just haven't thought of the right bin name for it yet. Anyway, so this is how you harvest the larvae. We've got a little pin holding our catch tray, so that if you want to lift your bin, your catch trays won't fall. So it looks like we got a bunch of larvae that aren't quite mature. That happens a lot when your bin's overcrowded and there's enough humidity for them to crawl. Okay, let's check out this side. I'm still working out a little bit of the quirks. There's some humidity in the holding container, and so they're crawling in, and then they crawl up inside because of the humidity, and they land in this area here. Let's see if this one was any better. It usually is. Yep, a couple thousand larvae in there, pupa. Now these 2 bins are our early versions, and we didn't quite have the catch trays worked out, so I just set them in these little totes, and it seems to work pretty nice. Let me set this down here. So this was what was underneath this tray. As you can see, these bins put out a lot more than the other one. See if I can do this again without dropping it. So you can see this bin here, it's got quite a bit in it. So now I'm going to take all these and I'm going to put them in the fly room. Although I eventually will have too much in there and I'll have to feed some to the chickens. As you can hear, they're outside the door just waiting. Alright, so now the fly room. So there's probably a good 10,000 flies in here right now. And these are our egg laying blocks. We went away from the cardboard and went to these wooden blocks, mostly because they're reusable and the flies do definitely like to use them. Right now about half of the blocks get full. I have more than enough larvae. Doesn't seem to matter how many flies we've got in here. We get about 100,000 eggs a day currently. May not get any better unless I change the light to a better light. And so these trays over here, those are pupa bins. And that's what I do next is the 30,000 pupa that are ready. I'll dump in here. They don't really care what I put them in as long as it's seems to be if it's dry and if they can burrow into it, which the old pupa shells seem to be just great for them to burrow into. So one of the tricks I've learned to get these guys to lay their eggs is the humidity. Right now, there it is. Oh, so I just picked it off the floor. But right now the humidity in here is about 50% or less, and the temperature is about 80. And so I've got this sprayer here, and every morning I come in and I spray the walls, which brings up the humidity, and it also gives them something to drink. Now they don't need nothing to eat. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting a light mist on all the surfaces in here, and then after they are quenched, they will proceed to be ready to lay their eggs or to mate, which is all they're going to do in here. Alright. So next we'll go to the overflow room. Oh yeah, and we also have the humidifier, which that'll run all day, and then when the light goes out it goes off. It helps keep the humidity up. But I need to get better bins in here so that my fly population doesn't keep going crazy in this room. So even though I only have a fluorescent light in here, we do get some mating. And they are laying a few eggs, you know, a few thousand. I let them lay the eggs and go right back into the bin. See right down here, we got some clusters of eggs, which I harvested eggs 2 days ago. And these weren't there, so they're pretty fresh. Again, then we have a lot of flies, so there's going to be enough mating to seed those. So this is my shop, which I haven't been able to use for a shop for a little while because I've got so much larva. And this is our larva overrun. Now each one of these trays has a minimum of 100,000 larvae in it. The red ones are the younger ones. And as we go around the table they get a little older. But there's so many in a tray, they don't grow very fast because no matter how much food I put in, it isn't enough for the amount of larvae that are put in it. Now when I harvest the eggs every 3 days, I get about 2 or 3 of these black trays each time I harvest. Although when we harvest them, I go into smaller trays. Now we have 6. With the blocks, we're able to scrape the eggs off, which is a little nicer in here. We can fit more larvae. There's probably about 600,000 larvae in here, minimum, and they are really tiny right now. Let's see if I can even see them. So these top 3 trays are about 5 days old, and the trays down here are 2 days old, which I got screens on them, so I got some fruit flies inside, and if they go out, they'll mate and come back and lay eggs. But if I leave the screens over them, the fruit flies will just disappear. So they go from the little trays to these trays. These ones I just put in here today from a group that are like 9 days old. Or 8. Sorry about that. And these are our medium size. When they get to the large size, like this tray here, this is the oldest tray I have in here, and they are, some of them are starting to pupate, and they're not near big enough. A couple of black ones in there, but not very good lighting. So the early ones that pupate, are usually not old enough, but when I take this into the other room and thin them out and give them more food, they'll grow bigger, and the later ones will pupate into large flies. See, now this tray here is thick with larvae. It has got well over 100,000. All depends on the week. So if you have any ideas, again, if you have any ideas, some marketing ideas on this larva, I have a surplus. It's hard for me to sell 1,000 at a time, but anybody who's looking for bulk of 100,000 or more, let me know. Even 50,000 helps. There are plenty. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Let's just do a little check here. So the inside of this bin is 100 degrees. Needless to say, it heats up this room. Looks like a little over 100 there. And most of these bins are the same, at least in one point or another. Let's see. Yeah, looks like it's getting close to 110. Now 110 in the center, if you want to see why. Now on the top, you see how larvae on the top, they suck a lot of the moisture out of their food. I give them a wet barley, and as they soak the moisture out of the food, they get it down below 65%. Now there's not that many larvae in the really hot area where it's aerobically composting. Their frass is what's composting, and so they know what to do. They like it up to 105 degrees, and when it gets hot in the middle, they'll crawl over to the sides, and as it cools and dries, then they'll move back into the middle and look for some food. Some of these bins do a lot better. This bin here, I ended up harvesting 50,000 out of it, and so the remaining population grew much better than the one that's older and has more larvae in it. Yeah, these guys are still really kind of small. They're very versatile. I like feeding them the barley because it's easy to handle and it's easy to sift out when they get larger. Now here's an undisturbed bin. One thing I'll do on between feedings is that I will try and separate the husks. Larvae don't like the light, so they will go down. And they usually do it pretty quick, a lot faster than worms. Okay, there's still some larvae in there. Now I'm going to take out, every time when I do this, I take out a few larvae. There's probably, there could be as much as 1,000 larvae that I take out with the husks, but there's 100,000 larvae in it, so it's really less than a 1% each time I do that. And I do that every couple days. I did it yesterday, so that's why you see these bins aren't quite full. They'll get full up to the top after a couple days feeding. So in a couple days, Yeah, I'll wait. Pretty much did all of them. I do them try and get them all done at the same time. See, this one's getting full. That's because there's more larvae in here. I try not to harvest the frass while they're small. That I will do when they get larger. So sometimes the bins will get really full before I get a chance to change them out. Very nice, healthy larva. Since I fed them last night, this is a little damp. Again, you saw how the temperature is pretty warm. By tomorrow morning, it'll be dry and easy to get the husks off the top. I try and let it dry out occasionally. If you let the barley get too wet and mucky, you are very likely to get grain mites, and they can completely take over your bin. As far as controlling the grain mites, if you do get them, most of the time they will come up to the food right away when you feed, and the larva will hold back because of the mites and just pretty much scrape off the food and then refeed them. Or even throw in something dry like sawdust to dry out the situation. After you get as much food out as you can, throw in some sawdust, dry the larva out, and the mites will get off of them, and then most of them will perish because the mites need the moisture. And that will usually get good control of your mite problem if you have one. These ones are nice and clean. Thanks for watching.